Story 1. Hiding in the walls. I was 14 when the event happened, a night I will never forget, one that changed everything for me. At the time, I was used to staying up late doing homework, often in the stillness of the house while everyone else slept. It was peaceful, comforting even, in a way that allowed me to focus on my work. But that night was different. I was sitting at my desk, the light from my lamp casting a soft glow on the pages in front of me. The house was unusually quiet for a late evening, but that was nothing new. Everyone else had already gone to bed, and I usually found it peaceful to work alone in the stillness. But tonight, something felt off. I first noticed it when the scratching sound started. It was faint at first, barely audible above the rustle of my papers, but it was enough to make me pause. I glanced toward the wall next to me, where the sound seemed to be coming from. My heart skipped a beat as the noise grew louder. It wasn't the usual creaks or pops of an old house settling. This was deliberate, rhythmic, almost like something was crawling inside the walls. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just the house, maybe some rats or the pipes. But then the scratching stopped, and in its place, a low, wet thud. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. My instinct screamed at me to get up, to leave the room, but I couldn't move. I kept my eyes trained on the wall, willing the noise to stop. It did stop for a moment. Then, I heard it. The door to the small storage space near my bedroom door I'd never really used popped open with a sudden, sharp creak. The sound made me jump. My breath hitched as the door swung fully open, revealing a figure in the dark space. I froze. A man. He was tall, overweight, and his face was partially obscured by shadows, but his eyes, those were wide open and focused on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I opened my mouth to scream, but before I could make a sound, the man lunged toward me. His hand clamped over my mouth, muffling any noise. My heart raced, and panic surged through me as I struggled against his grip. My mind was a blur, my thoughts scrambling from way out. I couldn't breathe properly, and I felt my vision start to narrow, but just as I was about to lose consciousness, I heard the rush of footsteps in the hall. Elise, my mother's voice called from outside the door. The man's grip loosened slightly, and in that instant, I kicked him hard, my foot connecting with his shin. The pain shot up my leg, but it was enough to make him stumble back, just as the door slammed open. My father stood in the doorway, his face pale with shock. What the hell? He didn't finish the sentence. He rushed forward, pulling the man away from me, shouting for my mother to call the police. The man struggled beneath my father, but my dad's grip was unyielding. His arms were like iron as he held the man down, not giving him a chance to break free. I could barely breathe, still shaking, my heart pounding in my chest. The adrenaline was making everything feel surreal. Then, the police arrived, rushing in like a flood, their boots pounding against the floor. They quickly subdued the man, pulling him off my dad and cuffing him with practiced ease. I watched in a daze as they dragged him away, my father standing tall, still trying to catch his breath, his eyes locked on the man who had been hiding in our house. I couldn't look away when they searched his pockets, as if my eyes had a mind of their own. My stomach dropped when one of the officers pulled out something small and folded neatly, my underwear. My own. It sent an icy chill down my spine, making my legs feel weak. I could barely comprehend what was happening. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The man had been hiding in our walls, watching us all along. The man, now in handcuffs, was hauled away by the police, but my world felt like it had tilted on its axis. Something had been broken in a way I couldn't explain. The image of his face, his eyes locked onto mine from the shadows of my room, was burned into my mind, and no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, it wouldn't go away. My parents did their best to comfort me. My mom held me tight, murmuring that everything would be okay, but I could tell from the look in her eyes that she was just as shaken as I was. Nothing could make this feel okay. I couldn't forget the sight of him lurking in the darkness, hidden within the walls, so close, yet out of reach. In the days that followed, the police discovered more about the man who had invaded our lives. They told us his name, David Timmons, and that he had been living in the walls of multiple homes in the neighborhood. He'd been sneaking into houses at night, hiding in attics and storage spaces, watching families from the shadows, unseen and undetected. And even though the man was gone, the memories of that night of his presence in the shadows stayed with me. For years, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been taken from me, something irreplaceable. The sense of safety, the trust I had once felt in my own home, it was gone, forever.
Story 2. The Thing in the Basement. When I was 22, I had a part-time job as a janitor at a high school during the summer. It was a quiet job, and I usually worked alone, sometimes during the day, but often at night when the halls were empty. The work was simple sweeping, mopping, emptying trash cans, but it was the perfect gig for someone who wanted extra cash. One night, I was finishing up my shift, and Greg, one of the older janitors, had to leave early, so I was left to lock up the building for the night. It was after 9:03 p.m., and I was tasked with cleaning the gymnasium and moving the extra seats into the basement storage room. The school didn't have cameras in every hallway back then, and I often took advantage of being alone. It was one of those nights where I just wanted to get my work done quickly and go home. I grabbed a stack of 6 chairs and carried them down to the basement. The lights were dim, flickering in places, making the room feel even more abandoned than it was. The basement looked like something out of an old warehouse. Concrete floors, low ceilings, and a few large art mannequins covered in dusty paint cloths. They were always stored there, standing silently in the dim light, waiting for some sort of artistic purpose I had no interest in. After dropping off the chairs where the rest of them were stored, I went back upstairs to grab more. When I returned to the basement with another stack, I noticed something strange. One of the cloths that covered the mannequins had been moved. I knew for sure it had been covering one of the mannequins just moments earlier. Now, it was off, exposing the mannequin's shape in the dim light. I immediately texted Greg, telling him I thought someone else was in the basement. He quickly replied, asking what I meant, so I told him that the cloth covering one of the mannequins had been moved. He told me to check it out, and said no one else should be down there. A sense of dread filled me as I stood there, and sure of what to do, I stared at the mannequin, wondering if I was just imagining things. But as I looked around, I noticed something worse. In the far corner, hidden from the light, in the center of the room, there was another cloth. This one was tucked in the corner, and it was still moving ever so slightly. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. Someone was hiding under the cloth. My body reacted instinctively, and I ran up the stairs as fast as I could. I locked the basement door and texted Greg again, telling him someone was definitely down there. Greg was insistent that I call the police, but I didn't want to make it worse. I just needed him to come back. He'd only left 10 minutes ago. Instead, Greg told me to be a man and confront whoever was hiding in the basement. Reluctantly, I grabbed the keys and headed back down, determined to check it out. But when I reached the basement, the cloth had been thrown aside, and there was no sign of anyone hiding under it. I was about to breathe a sigh of relief when I heard a series of loud metallic thumps. They echoed through the basement, coming from the ceiling above me. I looked up and saw the air vents above me shaking. Then, the thumping stopped. A horrifying thought struck me: someone was crawling through the air vents. I looked up again and saw indentations slowly forming in the large air vents overhead, as if someone was making their way through them. The sound of muffled banging grew louder, as though someone was trying to break through the vent cover and drop down onto the floor. I stood frozen, not knowing what to do. I knew I had to get out. I ran up the stairs, locked the school doors, and bolted for the exit. I didn't look back. The next day, I told Greg a watered-down version of what happened. I said I thought I saw someone in the corner, but by the time I went back, they were gone. I told him that the thumping was probably just the air system acting up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That night was my last shift at that school. I never went back after that, and I never really told anyone the full story. To this day, I wonder who or what was hiding in that basement. Whoever it was, they knew exactly how to scare the hell out of me.
Story 3. The Hidden Room. I was 17, just a regular kid trying to make some extra cash by cleaning houses at that time. I was pretty meticulous about my work, making sure I didn't miss a spot. So when I was assigned to clean in a client's place on the outskirts of town. I didn't think much of it. The house was massive, beautiful, but a little eerie, like it had too many secrets hidden behind its walls. My client, Dan, was a strange guy. He was polite enough, but there was something off about him. When he showed me around the house, he was clear about one thing: stay out of the basement. I don't want anyone down there. I figured it was probably just an area he didn't want cleaned for some reason. So I nodded and didn't think twice about it. But curiosity has a way of eating at you. And as I was cleaning the guest bedroom, I found a box hidden beneath the bed. It was old and covered in dust, almost like it hadn't been touched in years. I pulled it out, wondering what it could be. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. Inside were photographs, black and white ones, and they were all of me. There I was, in various rooms around the house, taken without me noticing. Some of the pictures were from the bathroom, where I'd just been cleaning. Others were taken when I was wiping down the kitchen counters. One of them was a color photo, and in it, I could see myself moving through the kitchen, not even realizing someone was watching me. My face looked so unaware, like I was oblivious to the fact that someone was photographing me. I tried to brush it off. Maybe they were old photos from a previous cleaner. But the more I thought about it, the worse it felt. It was like I was being watched, like I'd been the subject of someone's private, disturbing collection. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't leave it at that. I had to know more. So, against my better judgment, I headed toward the basement door. Dan had warned me, but I couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. I found the spare key hidden in a drawer and unlocked the door. The basement was dark and musty, and the air felt thick with dust as I stepped inside. The silence was unnerving, like the house itself was holding its breath. I made my way further in, the creaking of the stairs echoing behind me, and then I saw it. Posters, disturbing posters. They were of underage boys and girls, their faces blurred in ways that made them look almost unreal. The buzzing sound was there again, louder now, vibrating through the floor and the walls. My heart was pounding as I turned and saw it, a camera on a tripod, aimed directly at me. It was just sitting there, still and focused. It felt like it had been waiting for me, like I was supposed to be in its line of sight. I couldn't stay. My mind was racing, my pulse quickened. I turned and ran back up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind me. I was shaking as I grabbed my phone and texted Dan, "I'm leaving. I won't be back." Before I could even get to the front door, my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. "Where are you going? Come back." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands were trembling as I left the house, not looking back even once. I didn't go back, not once.